freedom found.
Listen, last week we talked about overcoming that imposter syndrome. Hopefully you guys got a kick out of that episode. Today, though, we have a really good one. We're going to talk about how to find work you love in your dream career. So many people talk about their dream jobs. Can you remember what it was like as a little girl or a little guy? Imagining being in a space of freedom, doing some type of job that you knew as a kid would bring you fulfillment. I want y'all to imagine that for a second. Just go back there. Go back there for 1 second and remember what that was like to dream and to have no responsibilities, no challenges. Nothing was like impossible for you. You believed all things, right? So we're going to talk about how do you find this work that you actually love. You know, there's a model actually that I discovered a few years ago. I've used this model actually in training. You guys know that my background consists of training and development, so I've taught on many different subjects. This one thing that I've found, it's called the IKIGAI model, and it's a Japanese model that talks about finding your true happiness. And when I discovered that model, you know, it really spoke to me because of all the areas that the Japanese focus on. And so, you know, I want to share that with you today because I do believe there are some things within that model that we can use, we can apply in our lives to be able to identify that true happiness, that one thing that makes us feel happy, the one thing that kind of gets us to that dream or that fulfillment in terms of our career. And so with the Ikigai model, you know, one of the things it focuses on is what you truly love. You know, what you actually love. And those things are called our passions, you know. So it teaches you how to focus on what you love. You have to self-reflect and identify things that you actually love. The next thing on that model, it talks about what the world needs. And so this is what we call mission. There's always a need out there in the world. You know, you have homelessness, you have children that go hungry, you have schools that have, you know, no books. I mean, whatever your thing is, there are so many needs out in the world. We call those things missions. Okay, the next thing in the model, it talks about what can you get paid for. This is called your vocation. So we build our skills, we find jobs, we learn on the job skills, and we kind of develop skills in a certain space. And those things travel with us. Those things actually go along with us regardless of where we go. We take our skills with us. We take our passions with us. We take all of those desires to change the world, those missions with us as we go into new spaces. And so your vocation is focused on what can I actually get paid for? That's the question that you ask when you're processing this concept of true happiness. The next thing is like what you're really good at. You know, this is really considered your profession. Maybe you went to school for something. Maybe you've worked so long in a certain area that you've become an expert in this space and you've, you know, done this thing in your career already and you're known as the expert in this space. That's called your profession. So those 4 areas, what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at. Those questions is what the Japanese culture actually used to discover what actually answers the question, what brings me the most happiness? And so they call it the Ikigai model. And so I want you to remember that. See, I remember when I was a little girl, I actually, you know, I wanted to become a cartoonist. You guys have heard me talk about this on this podcast, but I want to share a little bit more about my journey into getting to where I am today, into what I believe is my dream job. I wanted to become a cartoonist. You know, I actually discovered cartooning at a young age. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I saw characters on the TV, and I thought that those characters were real. This gives you a little insight into how my imagination was at the time. I thought they were real. I can remember having this conversation. I think it was with my aunt, and I was like, where do these people live? Like, where are those people in these cartoons? Like, where's this world? I want to go there. And they were like, you know, that's actually someone drew those characters. That person is like a cartoonist. They kind of it was Disney, and they were like, yeah, they work at Disney and they create these movies and they draw these characters. And so I remember thinking, wow, well, if someone can draw that, then I want to create worlds like that. I actually want to become a cartoonist and work for Disney. So that became my childhood dream. Ever since the age of 5, I wanted to work for Disney. Okay, fast forward to all of elementary school, middle school, high school. I did study in the arts. I had opportunities to kind of, enter all these competitions, and I did camps and things like art camps and things like that. So I continued to work my skill. I was known as a cartoonist in my school because I would draw different characters. I would draw these comic strips. All I wanted to do was draw. And so by the time I got to college, I did major in art. I studied studio art. And while I was there, I had an opportunity to work for Disney. I did an internship at Disney. And so I made it all the way to an internship. I worked at Disney as an animator at Disney Quest. In the Animation Academy. And I was able to sit there like 12 hours a day teaching kids how to draw all the characters of Disney. And I can remember thinking, man, this is my dream job. It is the most fulfilling thing. And when I think about that experience, it still does ring like one of my most favorite experiences ever in my life is when I did that internship. And it was because I had finally reached a space where I reached like one of my goals. But when I reached that goal, I was in college, I realized that, man, if I can get to this goal this quick, then what else is out there for me? Like, what else is there for me to accomplish? So I started dreaming a little bit more. And while I was at school, I also had an opportunity to do an internship at the New York Film Academy. And so I started studying film because I'm following Walt Disney. And so I'm looking at him, I'm watching the way he moves. I love everything about Disney. And all I wanted to do was work and become Walt Disney. And so I started dabbling in film, and I went to film school, started studying screenwriting and, directing for actors. And I fell in love with film and just teaching and being in the space of the creative arts, helping other people use their creativity to tell their stories. I fell in love with that. Okay, track with me here. So now you're following, I'm doing something that I love, which is my passion. I'm kind of building these skills in terms of like film, in terms of animation. And so now I have a little bit of a vocation, something that I can get paid for. And so after I graduated college, I was looking for a job. Of course, there's this whole concept out there about artists being a starving artist. You don't want to just enter into a space without any type of, there's a belief about artists will just starve because you have to sell your work. That's the only way to really become successful is by selling your work. Well, unbeknownst to those people who made that rule, I was also doing graphic design on the side. I was building my portfolio. My parents are entrepreneurs, and they owned a club and a store during the day. And I was the one that would make all the flyers for all of the events for my dad. He was a DJ, and so I would make all the events. So in addition to all of the skills that I built in college, I became the flyer girl. And so everyone knew me as Amy Graphics, the flyer girl. I did the flyers for every party. I did banners. I did business cards, websites, whatever, you name it. I became that person for small businesses in my community, just creating their graphics. And so with that portfolio, it actually helped land a job for me at a corporate job as a graphic designer in a training department. And it's interesting because they didn't even care about my degree or any of the experiences that I had prior to getting that job. What they wanted to see was my portfolio. My portfolio really set me up to get the corporate job that I received. They saw what I was able to design. They were trying to really rebrand their department. They had just merged with another company, and their training department was really trying to rebrand and really create this new culture with design. And so I had an opportunity to come into that job in the beginning to create something from scratch. And so that landed me my first corporate job. What I learned in that training department, I learned about instructional design. And here I am, a person that has worked at Disney as an animator, did the internship as an animator, done a film, directing for film internship at New York Film Academy. I had started grad school to get my, master's in advertising and branding. I was known as the flyer girl, went to school for studio art, thought about becoming an art teacher. Here I am with a corporate job, and I ended up becoming an instructional designer by way of all of these things. All of these things kind of led to me becoming an instructional designer. And I had every skill necessary to be this designer. And it was so interesting because I had never heard about instructional design, but instructional design involved all those things that I had picked up along the way. So be careful about trying to jump off your job too soon or too early, because everything matters on your journey. You're going to take everything you're collecting right now is going to be important to where you're going. So pay attention to the skills that you're building, to the experiences that you're having now. That's why I said celebrate yourself in the last episode, because they make who you are becoming. What's up, family? Coach Amy P here. Are you waking up on Mondays feeling like you are stuck in a job that you do not love? Listen, I get it. But guess what? It does not have to be that way. My coaching services, you can break free from the I hate Monday cycle and start saying, I love what I do. Imagine waking up excited for work, feeling fulfilled on purpose for your destiny, saying, I absolutely love what I do. Don't let another day go by feeling unfulfilled and uninspired. Visit CoachAmyP.com today. Matter of fact, right now, to submit your discovery session. Let's unlock your fullest potential, discover your passions, and create the career you absolutely love, whether it's on the job or off the job. I can't wait to help you on this journey. Let's get back to the episode. And so as an instructional designer, I was really good at it. I had all these skills. I made a ton of money, found peace, all this happiness and things like that. But I still felt like this disconnect to what was happening in the world. And so remember, IKIGAI focus on what you love, which is your passion, what the world needs, which is your mission, what you can get paid for, which is your vocation, and what you're good at, which is your profession. I had all those things except one. And it was what the world needed, the mission. I didn't really feel that what I was doing in the corporate space, while I was very happy, I felt joy being there. I was very appreciative for the job. I was making really good money. I was excelling in my position. I continued to kind of walk that corporate ladder. I'm pretty sure I would have ended up as a director, VP, and above. No doubt in my mind. But I would leave that job unfulfilled because I would go back home and there were things that were happening in my community that I cared more about than making a paycheck. There are things now that are happening in the world that I want to do something about. And, so out of that heart to really serve and be a leader in my community, I started a nonprofit. And so it wasn't until I started my nonprofit that I really felt that, wow, this is what life is about. This is what it's about. This is my peace, my joy. Everything that I was looking for came from serving in a nonprofit space, in the space of serving kids, helping them reach their fullest potential, using all my gifts, my talents, and my skills to give back to them. When I felt that, I was like, okay, now I'm complete. And so it didn't even matter what type of skill. All of those things started working together. And when they started working together, at the center of it, I realized this is what I feel called to. This core thing bring me happiness. I'm able to do all the things. I'm able to be creative. I'm able to serve people. I'm able to teach people. I'm able to make some money from my skill. When I started doing all of those things in my nonprofit, it actually brought like an unmeasured amount of happiness. So all these things actually led me, once I started the nonprofit, it actually opened up a space and an opportunity for me to serve. And I knew I had to leave the corporate world because I wanted to be able to freely serve, to be able to freely do things, be the change I wanted to be in my community. I didn't want to be tied down by any type of, I got to be somewhere between 9 and 5. I have to do X, Y, and Z. I needed the room and the space to be able to be creative and just do what I wanted to do in terms of serving in my nonprofit. So I became an entrepreneur full time. And actually I still am doing instructional design. I still manage many projects, many contracts with corporate clients as an instructional design. So I'm still entrepreneurship has allowed me the freedom to not only be an instructional designer, use all those skills that I have to make money, teach and educate others. It's also allowed me the freedom to serve my community in my nonprofit as an educator, as a teacher, as a coach, as a mentor. And so entrepreneurship has allowed me all of that freedom to be able to do what I feel called to do. And at the end of the day, those 4 areas, I've found room to make them all work together. And that creates that harmony and that core, it creates that happiness that we're talking about. So what can you do to get one step closer? If you're still on your job, if you're almost there, about to jump ship, what can you do, honestly? What can you do? The first thing I would do is, like the IKIGAI model focuses on, think about your passion. What is it that you're passionate about? Passion will get you far. I don't care what anybody says. Yes, skills can make you a ton of money. Passion, though, it will drive you. It's like fire. It's like fuel to the fire. It will keep you going when you don't feel like you can do anything else. Passion actually pushes you into places where skills may not even be able to do. So think about your passions. What are you passionate about? Maybe you're not quite passionate about something yet. Well, what are you interested in? You have to have some type of interest. And once you identify those passions, those interests, then you want to start researching and finding industries and jobs that actually align with those interests, with those passions, with those values. Okay, so think about what you're passionate about. You also can start networking and building relationships with people and professionals in those fields. Like I said before, I remember wanting to become a VP at one time when I was on the job. I got real close with my VP. I volunteered for every project. I went with them to their meetings. I listened and I watched the way they behave. And I had really great examples when I was in the corporate space. I had some strong leaders ahead of me, and I learned a lot from them. And so think about your space, your circle of influence. Who's in your circle that you really can lean on, that you can watch, you can learn from? So think about those things. The next thing I would do is set realistic career goals. You can't just throw a dart at an empty target. You'll just be walking around shooting at nothing. You definitely want to set some goals, set some career goals, and have a clear vision. Make it plain on where you're going and where you want to be. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur from the scratch because I was born to entrepreneurs. But when I started my corporate job, I always had a feeling, and I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I just didn't know how, or I just didn't have the resources to just do it on my own. So I got a job, and I learned things on that job that helped me, even still to this day, has helped me become an entrepreneur and be successful in my business. So set real goals. Think about your career. Where are you going? Write that stuff down, so that you know the next step that you need to take. The next thing I would do is actually build your portfolio. I had a portfolio from high school. That portfolio actually helped land my first job. It wasn't because of my degree. Well, I'm going to take that back, because one of the requirements was for me to have a bachelor's degree. So I did need my degree, but it was just a checkbox. They weren't asking me my grades or what did I make or how many classes did I take. That was just one checkbox. I needed a bachelor's degree to enter their department, but what really got me the job was my portfolio. So build your portfolio, especially if you're a creative and you're trying to enter a creative space. If you're trying to sell some type of creative product, you need to have some type of track record, an example of what you're wanting to sell. Create that portfolio. Gain relevant experience now. And maybe you're not a creative. It can be anything. Maybe it's an HVAC service. Okay, work alongside someone that's a specialist in HVAC. Take pictures. Document the process. Ask a lot of questions. This is going to help develop your expertise and build your portfolio in a space so that you can communicate that where you're going to make money. You're going to have to make money as a business owner. At the end of the day, you need to be adaptable, okay? And think about perseverance. You're on a job. Be thankful for the job that you have right now. If it's not quite your dream job, it's okay. Again, think about your dream job. What is that dream? What can you pick up from the job that you're working now to develop the skills that you want to be able to move into that position that you're really desiring, whether it's transitioning out or if it's transitioning up? Whatever it is, you need to continue to focus on your skills and be adaptable. Your career path may not always look like a straight arrow. It may not always be straightforward. And you will face challenges along the way. But stay flexible, be adaptable to new opportunities, and maintain a positive attitude. I'm telling you, it is going to get you a long way. Perseverance is often the key to overcoming obstacles and achieving your dreams. The last thing is this. Listen, a dream career is subjective. It's really unique to you as the individual. So don't allow people to curate and mold your dream. You have to know who you are and who you're called to be. It belongs to you, and it may evolve over time as you discover these new interests and you have priorities that come along your journey. Things may change. So be open to that change. Be proactive, okay? So by taking proactive steps and staying committed to your goals, you will increase your chances of turning your dream career into a reality. I'm excited about you. I'm excited about the next step that you're going to take, regardless of what that step is. All right? Well, that's a wrap. That's all I got today on this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. As always, leave a comment or question in the comment section. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about the podcast so they can tune in. I can't wait to connect with you next week. See you next time.
You're looking for that freedom, freedom, freedom.